Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea podcast here on my YouTube channel. Of course, I am your host, John Campea, doing my daily show thing here, talking every day. We want to get together. We want to talk about our favorite things. We want to talk about movies and TV shows, some other things going on in the world, and we like to discuss those things here. Want to get started with this, though. So, it's Sunday morning. Last night was the Mayweather and Conor McGregor fight. I've been against this fight. The whole thing. I thought it was just circus. I thought it was ridiculous that they were even doing the fight. And I said I wasn't even going to watch it. However, last night, one of my friends that I don't actually get to see very often was throwing a party at their place. And a number of my friends that I don't get to see very often, we're all going to go over to their place and watch the fights. And so Ann and I, we went. Corey came with us too. And there were a number of people there that you guys would know. So we went, and sure enough, so they had the fight, and I watched the fight. The fight was exactly the way I said it was going to be. Although, the one difference was, I said I was predicting that the fight would go the distance only because Mayweather doesn't traditionally have knockout power, especially like the last 5, 6, 7 years. He doesn't have knockout power. So I thought it would go the distance, but it would be an easy win for Mayweather, like easy breezy win for Mayweather. And it was. It was an easy breezy win for Mayweather. Now, some people watch that fight and go, what are you talking about, John? Like, Conor did really well. I'm a huge Conor McGregor fan, okay? But no, he didn't. Mayweather did his exact game plan. And Mayweather's game plan was really don't do much for the first few rounds. Let Conor get in there, punch himself out, start throwing his heavy punches and start to tire himself out. And then later on the fight, start turning it on and dominate him. And that's exactly what happened. I think at one point, the commentator said that through 2 rounds, like Mayweather only threw 12 punches. Mayweather wasn't even trying to do anything other than let Conor throw himself out. Conor threw, and everybody's going, oh, Conor's doing so well. But it's like, no, he's doing exactly what Mayweather wanted him to do. Although I gotta say, I thought McGregor looked better than I thought he would. Because, look, the reason this whole thing was a joke is, and I kept trying to tell people this, who clearly don't know a lot about MMA, boxing and MMA are 2 totally different things. But John, boxing's a part of MMA. Boxing is one tool in MMA, but even then, you use boxing in a very different way in mixed martial arts than you do in boxing. And they're 2 very different things. As a matter of fact, pre-fight, Pat Miletich, he did a great job breaking down about how boxing in MMA is done very differently than boxing in a boxing match. And he did a terrific job breaking that down for people. But anyway, it's like you have one of the greatest boxers of all time. Somebody who's in that conversation. He's 50-0 now. Going into a boxing match, not an MMA match, not a street fight, going into a boxing match with a guy who's never had a boxing match before. How anybody thought Conor McGregor had the slightest chance in that fight, it was beyond me. There is no version of the multiverse that Conor McGregor ever had a chance in that fight. Ever. The only way McGregor had a chance in that fight was if Floyd Mayweather tripped on his walk to the ring and fell down and smashed his face on the concrete floor. That was the only version of reality that Conor McGregor had a shot. And sure enough, at no time in that fight did Conor McGregor ever stun, hurt, or have Floyd Mayweather in trouble. Basically, Conor was never in a position to win that fight. And of course, and so the fight went exactly as it was going to go. I just didn't think Mayweather would knock him out. I didn't think Mayweather would be able to stop the fight. I thought it would go the distance. But you know what? Hey, hats off to Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor did what nobody else would do. He challenged himself. Get in the ring, not just against any boxer, against arguably one of the maybe top 10 greatest boxers of all time. And did it there. And hats off to him for doing it. And he didn't embarrass himself at all. Now, here's the thing, though. Why didn't they make this a series match? And don't worry, I'm going to move off of the Conor McGregor-Mayweather fight here in just a second. We'll get to your questions in a second. But if you're going to have just a boxing match, it's only fair that you have a boxing match and then 6 months later have an MMA match. Let's see Floyd Mayweather get into an octagon with Conor McGregor. I will give you 50-1 odds. 50-1 odds that Conor McGregor does not last one round. Conor McGregor does not last, sorry, not Conor McGregor, I'm sorry. Floyd Mayweather doesn't last one round. Not one round. I would be shocked if Mayweather lasted more than 45 seconds. Because Conor would go in there, snap a leg kick, something Floyd's never felt. Floyd would drop like a sack of potatoes. Conor would get on, start throwing the elbows, ground and pound, done. Just like that. It would be over. But they didn't. They just wanted to do patty cake boxing. And obviously the guy who's a vastly superior boxer won that fight. But anyway, it was something it captured everybody's imagination. I'll give them that. There are people who aren't MMA and aren't boxing fans that got interested in that fight. So, hey, I guess if you're going to draw attention to the sport, I guess that's one good thing that came out of it. So anyway. Okay, enough of that. We're here to talk about movies and TV and all kinds of stuff in entertainment, and this is what we're going to do today. I have picked out 6 questions that you guys have sent in to me. How do you get a question to me? It's simple. Just email me anytime at thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. That's thejohncampeapodcast@gmail.com. Just send on in those questions. I got 6 of them picked out here, and we're going to dive into it right now. And the first question today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Joe Zapata. And by the way, I encourage you guys, if you're one of the people who enjoys, I'm just going to shamelessly plug my Patreon here. If you're one of the people who enjoys my 70 to 90 videos per month and you actually want to contribute to it, check out my Patreon page. You can look at this graphic right here. Check the description of this video for a link. I decided to leave the corporate world. I'm no longer working for corporate overlords at AMC or Complex or Verizon or whatever. I'm not working with them anymore. I don't have 25 full-time staff. I don't have all the millions of dollars behind me. I'm doing this on my own. People who are my Patreon supporters, they get audio-only podcasts. So all the John Campea podcasts, plus my Star Wars Talk Tuesdays, plus a couple other things, we put into audio podcast form for the Patreon supporters. We have an exclusive Facebook group that I'm on every day, and we're all interacting with each other. We have exclusive private video not one-on-one, but 1-on-20 or 1-on-30 video chats weekly. Anyway, just check out the link and you'll find out all the stuff that goes on there. Anyway, enough with the shameless plugs. Let's move on to the question. First question again, it comes from Patreon supporter Joe Zapata, who writes, "Love the podcast." Thank you so much, Joe. "What do you think of the Fantastic Four reboot again? This time, they say the children of Reed and Sue Richards would be the lead characters. If you thought the last Fantastic Four sucked, this one is going to bomb even worse in my opinion. Maybe they should try and bring them into the MCU for a boost. Your thoughts?" Well, thanks a lot for the question, Joe. For those of you who don't know what Joe is talking about, there was one single report from a mid-level site, a site I like very much, by the way. I don't mean that in a detrimental way when I say mid-level site. And it's called Bleeding Cool. That they said they have a source that says that Seth Grahame-Smith is working on a script for a Fantastic Four movie, but instead of being really about the Fantastic Four, it would be about Reed and Sue's 2 children, which are Franklin Richards and Valeria Richards. So they're kids, and that the Thing and Human Torch would be in it as well. Number one, I don't know if I buy it. I don't know that I buy that. That sounds like a ridiculous concept, and I don't think Fox should be stupid enough. I don't believe Fox should be stupid enough to do something like that. I think that it does sound like a dumb concept, but hey, we've seen some amazing movies that have come from what we initially thought were dumb-sounding concepts, right? I mean, we've all seen them. So that happens, sure. Franklin Richards is not a good character to do a movie on. Franklin Richards, I think, is actually one of the biggest mistakes that Marvel has ever made. I mean, it's just the character, it's just too powerful of a character. He's basically God. Franklin Richards is basically a god. He creates universes and changes reality and all. Like, it's a god. Like, what can you do? If you're going to be faithful to the Franklin Richards character, what are you going to do? Okay, start of the movie. There's this problem. Franklin Richards just goes, "Problem be gone." And the problem's gone. That's it. That's it. Simple, movie over. So you either got to do Franklin Richards completely inconsistent with the comic book Franklin Richards, or you got to have this stupidly powerful character. And I'm just not into the character. I just think it's too much. The character is too much. So I don't think Fox will do it. I also don't think the answer is to join up with the MCU. I don't think that's the answer. That's another thing I'm getting kind of tired of, that fans just think, oh, just join up with the MCU. It's like, no, that doesn't fix problems. That wouldn't make a bad movie suddenly a good movie. I do think Fox should give up on Fantastic Four. And you never hear me say that, but on Fantastic Four, I'll say it. 3 strikes and you're out. I think Fox has tried with Fantastic Four over and over again. They've proven they just can't find that thing. Okay, fine. Let Fantastic Four go. Guess what, Fox? You're doing some other things really well. You're doing your X-Men franchise really well. You're doing Deadpool great. You did Logan great. Focus on the things you're doing really superior work on. And this thing that you tried numbers of times and completely failed with Fantastic Four, let it go. Just let it go. So don't work with, I don't think they should work with Marvel in doing a Fantastic Four. I think they should just give up on Fantastic Four and let it go back to Marvel. That's it. Keep everything else, but let that one go. Okay, anyway, spent a lot of time on that. Let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Matthew H Junie, who writes, before the days of HBO, AMC, FX, Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon, you had to go to the theater for good adult stories. Everything on TV was PG. Now you can watch real, non-PG content from your own couch. What are your thoughts on this, and if you think the golden age of TV we are currently in is why a lot of good mid-budget movies are going unwatched at the theater? I believe TV has killed mid-budget movies. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Junie. First of all, I reject the notion that something that is PG can't be adult. I reject that completely. Just because you can't say fuck and just because you can't show tits doesn't mean it's not an adult story. It's not a mature story. There are lots of examples of that. So I reject that notion. There are certain stories that require R-rated stuff. I'm not saying that there's not, but for the most part, I reject this notion that, oh, if it's going to be mature, it has to say fuck. And no, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Anyway, let's move on. Is anybody going to say that The Dark Knight was not mature? Is anybody going to say that The Dark Knight, despite it being a comic book movie, was not really an adult-themed movie? Of course it was. It wasn't rated R. But anyway, I digress. The bigger question here is like television and the type of mature content that we can now get on things like HBO or Showcase or Hulu or Stars or Netflix or whatever, is that stuff killing mid-budget movies? I gotta say, I don't think so. I think there are other factors involved. Now, this brings up like a debate that comes up a number of times, like every single week, which is TV versus movies, and which is better. And really, there is no correct answer as to what is better, TV or movies. Why? Because TV and movies are so radically different things. I mean, in the world of television, you can get a show, but to watch one season, let's say it's a 10-episode season. Arguments, let's cut the difference. Okay, so there are 22-episode types of television shows. There are like 10, 11, 12, 8 episodes. Let's say 12. Let's say 12 is the number, okay? So a television series, if you want to watch one season, if you want to actually get the story, you can't sit down and get the story in 90 minutes or 2 hours, 2.5 hours. You have to invest an evening a week for 12 weeks. You have to basically invest about 12 hours of your time to sit down and very slowly, and TV is very slow. And that's a good thing for TV. That's a good thing. TV is very paced, very methodical. It's like one episode this happens, the next episode this happens, the next episode this happens, the next episode this happens. And very slowly they can develop their characters over the span of months and then have certain payoffs and blah, blah, blah. It's one form of storytelling. Movies are a radically different form of storytelling. You go into a movie, you get introduced, have the characters and context developed, have the main plots, start to bloom, and then bring it all to a conclusion and climax, all of it in 2 hours. You get your full movie, your full story experience in one sit-down 2-hour session. So which is better? One or the other? Well, neither. They're two very, very different things. They're two radically different things. And they each do something very differently. One tells its story over the span of 12, 14, 20, 25, 50 hours. One tells its story in 2 hours. One goes through waves and things like this. One has a beginning, middle, and end all within one sit-down session. They're two very different things. And people all throughout history of television and movies have preferred one method or the other. I don't think that television is like what's behind, say, declining movie theater numbers. What I think is behind declining movie theater numbers is not that there are alternatives to movies. There have always been alternatives to movies. And yes, today we have more alternatives than ever before, but there have always been alternatives to going to the movies. Whether it's video games, go outside and play sports, do whatever, there's always alternatives. I think the cause of the decline, especially with mid-budget movies, like blockbusters are doing great, but the decline of mid-budget movies is the fact that the movie-going experience has not improved all that much. Yes, we got a better screen, and yes, in some theaters we have more comfortable seats, but other than that, the movie-going experience hasn't really matured. We haven't seen a lot of change, but movie ticket prices have continued to go up and up and up and up and up. Movie concession prices have continued to go up and up and up and up and up and up and up. So if I'm going to spend, say, $40 one night on me and my date going to the movies, getting some popcorn and soda and whatever, if I'm going to spend $40, I am more likely to spend $40 on a big blockbuster spectacle than I am on a mid-budget drama about a mom who hasn't seen her puppy in 6 months. For argument's sake, right? So I believe that the problem has been that the movie-going experience has not improved all that much while ticket prices have increased. And I believe that hurts. And that's what makes alternative experiences, television, video games, sports, walking, whatever, that situation makes alternatives look more appealing. So really, I think it's more than that. But anyway, great question. Hugh, we can actually do an entire series on the issue of movies versus television, all that kind. We could do an entire series on that. Anyway, let's move on to the next question. And the next question also comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Aden Mari, who writes, so with the recent news of there being a solo Joker film and also a Joker and Harley Quinn film, I was wondering if we could have another Jungle Book scenario on our hands. If these two movies come out too close together, could they potentially damage each other's box office? I'd love to hear your thoughts and bring on the filthy. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Aiden. Yeah, so we have found out recently that it looks like Martin Scorsese, you all know this by now, is looking at producing a standalone Joker film that's outside of the DCEU. It apparently is going to take place in the early 80s, which obviously means that can't be the Jared Leto Joker, because Jared Leto would be 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 years old at that time. So we set in the early 80s and would be like a Taxi Driver kind of gritty crime drama, which sounds amazing. Also, we've officially heard that Jared Leto and Margot Robbie are returning as the Joker and Harley Quinn, and they're going to do a Joker and Harley Quinn movie, not to be confused with Gotham City Sirens, which is another project that I don't even know if it's going to still continue or not. But so the question is, could the fact that they're doing a Joker standalone movie and a different Joker and Harley Quinn movie, could those films hurt each other? Well, first of all, I don't think you asking the question if they're released too close to each other. I don't think they're going to be released very close to each other. You're probably looking at like two movies that would be released 6 months to a year apart. So I think that's fine. The fact that they're both involved the Joker, I don't think hurts it. Here's the one thing, though, that could hurt them. If one comes out first and it's not good. So if the Joker and Harley Quinn movie comes out, and it's called Joker and Harley Quinn, if that movie comes out and it's not good, and we have no reason to believe it won't be good, I'm just saying, theoretically, if that movie comes out and it's not good and people don't like it, then you're damn right, that will affect Martin Scorsese's Joker film. People will be more apprehensive about that film just because Joker's in the title. People will be more apprehensive. It will hurt it. Or if, the Martin Scorsese produced Joker film comes out first, and for whatever reason, that movie turns out to be bad. If that turns out to be bad, and then 6 months later they try to do a Joker and Harley Quinn movie, it's going to have an impact. So I don't think the fact that the two movies exist are going to be a problem. I don't think that's going to hurt it. What I do think could become an issue is if one comes out before the other, and obviously one will come out before the other, but if one comes out before the other and it ends up not being good, if that happens, it could be trouble for the second film. Anyway, great question. Great question. All right. Let's move on now to the next question today. And the next question today comes to us from Robbie Diaz. And Robbie Diaz writes, I'm one of the few people that doesn't dislike the prequels that much. I like Qui-Gon, Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, Windu, and Dooku, Palpatine, among other stuff. Are there things that you actually enjoyed? Yeah, so like everybody who has watched me for any period of time knows I am a prequel hater. I do not like the prequels. I think they're garbage. However, again, I always like to say this, that doesn't mean I don't think you should like them. I mean, if you like the prequels, that's awesome. I celebrate that. I'm not trashing on you for liking them. I think that's awesome. All film is subjective. If you like the prequels, I celebrate that. That's great. That doesn't change my opinion that I don't like them and I think they're trash. That's fine. That's what I think. You think something different. It's all good. But, you know, I believe, though, that within the prequels, there are some good things in the prequels. There are. For instance, I am an unashamed supporter of the podcast, or the pod race. I love the pod race scene in Phantom Menace. I think that scene is a triumph in visual effects, and more than anything else, it's a triumph in sound design. The sound design of just, I really want to encourage you sometime, put on the Phantom Menace, go to the pod race, and just turn away from the TV. Don't watch the TV. Just listen. Listen to the sound design of that sequence. It's amazing. But overall, I thought the pod race was thrilling and exciting and heart-pounding, and it looked gorgeous, and it sounded immaculate. I love the pod race. The Darth Maul, Obi-Wan, and Qui-Gon fight, ultimately leading to just the Obi-Wan and Darth Maul fight. But that fight is brilliant. Absolutely. The first truly incredibly choreographed lightsaber fight. The greatest lightsaber fight of all time is Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi. But that fight isn't nearly as well choreographed as the Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon versus Darth Maul fight. That's just insane. That took it all to the next level. That was the type of lightsaber fight we've always dreamed about seeing. And that was wonderful and magnificent. I also do like Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah, I like Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon Jinn. I don't like everything they had him do, but I thought that was also pretty good. The visual effects of the prequels. There are a bunch of people who whine about, oh, how much digital effects were. No, the digital effects were great. Actually, I still contend that the greatest sucker job and the greatest screw job in the history of the Oscars was when The Matrix won Best Visual Effects over Phantom Menace at the Academy Awards. That was some bullshit. That was some bullshit. Don't get me wrong. The visual effects in The Matrix were great. And the movie The Matrix is much better than The Force Awakens. Oh, sorry, not The Force Awakens, Phantom Menace. The movie The Matrix is much better than The Phantom Menace. It's a much better movie for sure. But the award is not for which is the better movie. The award was what has the better visual effects. Clearly, The Phantom Menace had better visual effects. I hate the prequels, and I'm telling you right now, Phantom Menace had much better visual effects. And they kept pushing the envelope throughout the prequel saga of visual effects. They did things that had never been done before in visual effects. They were so cutting edge with the visual effects that they had. Now, unfortunately, I can't go much beyond that, but yes, I agree. There are good things in the prequels. Even I, a big prequel hater, would tell you there are good things in the prequels. I just don't think there were enough to make up for all the bad crap, but there are definitely some good things in there that I appreciate. All right, thanks a lot for the question, Robbie. We move on now to the next question. And the next question comes to us from Soufian Attalibi. Sorry, man, if I'm butchering your question. Anyway, Soufian Attalibi writes, here's my question. Why did so many big movies come out in July? Spider-Man Homecoming, Dunkirk, War for the Planet of the Apes, Valerian, Atomic Blonde. Well, August has had much quote-unquote weaker films. Dark Tower, Logan Lucky, Annabelle, Hitman's Bodyguard. I went to the theaters 4 times in July and only once in August. Were the latter films expected to do better than they did, or do movie studios just prefer to release their films in July? Thanks a lot for the question. Yeah, I honestly scratch my head about that sometimes. I think there's a little bit of a chicken and the egg scenario going on here, whereas it feels like, and I don't know this for certain, but it feels like studios think that movies do better in July than August. So let's put our bigger movies in July. But by doing that, you're making July the better month for movies. By putting all of your bigger movies, your blockbuster movies, in July instead of August, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. You make it so July is the bigger box office month than August is. And I think, for some reasons they put like Annabelle. Annabelle, they never expected to be a $400 million film, but they know Annabelle could do pretty well in August, so they put it there. I think there's an opportunity. I've been talking about this for a while, for months like August and September and months like January and February. I believe there is opportunity there for a studio to put one of their bigger films there and just clean up. But again, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think studios say, we think July will do better than August, but then they do things to make it so July does better than August. And that's really odd, and that's really weird. Yeah, there are films like Logan Lucky and Hitman's Bodyguard, which, by the way, both I think are really good films. Logan Lucky is great. Hitman's Bodyguard isn't a great movie, but I quite enjoyed it. It's a fun film. You should check out both of those movies, in my opinion. I think they're both well worth watching, especially Logan Lucky. Actually, I probably have Logan Lucky in my top 10 films of the year so far. Lower on the top 10 list, and it'll probably get bumped out eventually. But as of right now, I think Logan Lucky might even be in my top 10. It's a really fun, smart film. Check it out if you want. But yeah, the reason they do it is, again, I think a self-fulfilling prophecy. They are afraid it's going to be one way, so then they do things to ensure it's going to be that way. It's a really odd kind of dilemma. I wish studios would take some risks. Take Spider-Man Homecoming. Well, look, you know what movie really could have benefited from coming out in August? War for the Planet of the Apes. War for the Planet of the Apes would have so benefited an August release date. Instead of doing the stupid thing that they did by releasing that movie on Spider-Man Homecoming's second weekend? Really? Like, I just do not know what they were thinking doing that. I'll bet you dollars to dimes that if they had put War for the Planet of the Apes in August, it would have done at least 20% better. At least 20% better. But, I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll just have to wait and see. All right, now we move on to the final question for this Sunday. And the final question comes to us from Terry Cooper, who writes, while I agree it's crazy to kill off a lucrative and popular character, most superhero shows and movies are reluctant to raise the stakes by killing anyone. Even if somebody dies, they often come back in some form. Tom Cavanagh in CW's The Flash has resurfaced 3 times now. What are your thoughts? Should there be some real deaths and stay that way in these properties? Otherwise, people will start losing interest. Well, thanks a lot for the question, Terry. I disagree on one hand, and I agree on another. The part that I disagree with is your final statement that unless you kill major characters, people lose interest. I disagree with that. I think there are enough case studies to prove that that's not true. I mean, look at Breaking Bad. Yeah, you had some characters die off, but Walter and Jesse were there the entire series right up to the series finale. They never killed off one of the 2 major characters. They lived. And if you want to count Walter's wife as well as one of the next, like maybe the 3rd most major character, if you want to count, the FBI best friend as that is the maybe 3rd or 4th biggest major. I mean, none of them died, but nobody lost interest in Breaking Bad. And that went, all the way through. I don't think people would lose interest if you don't kill off major characters. What I do think people start to become very suspicious of and start to lose some interest in is when you do exactly what you're talking about. Fake killing. When you fake kill a character and, oh, no, actually they're alive. You do kill a character, oh, they're actually back. When you do that, you start to erode interest. And that's become one of the issues with Marvel films for me. I love the MCU. Everybody knows I love the MCU, but one of the issues I have with the MCU is that they have gone back to that well so many times. Oh, look, Thor died. Oh, no, don't worry. He's actually alive. Oh, Loki died. Oh, no, he's still alive. Nick Fury died. Oh, no, Nick Fury's still alive. Iron Man died. Oh, no, Iron Man's still alive. Coulson died. Oh, no, Coulson's still alive. I mean, they've done that so many times that now when they do have a character die, it doesn't have any emotional impact on me because I don't really believe they're dead. I don't believe they're dead. Like, even minor spoiler here for Age of Ultron, but if you haven't watched it by now, that's your problem. Like, when Rhodey falls out of the sky, not Age of Ultron, I'm sorry, Civil War. When War Machine falls from the height that a passenger aircraft flies, and he free falls and crashes into the ground, guess what? You can be wearing all the body armor in the world. Your organs, when you hit the ground, your heart inside of your body is going to smash against your spine and explode. You're dead. Okay? You can't survive that free fall. It doesn't matter how good your armor is. Anyway. So he falls, and they set up this horrible scene that Tony lands and he's heartbroken. He's holding Rhodey's broken body. He's up and walking again by the end of the movie. I mean, so when you do that too many times, that's what starts to lose it. Just don't say they're dead. So that when you do want to introduce something where maybe somebody is in peril or they die, then it has some dramatic impact. As long as you keep killing characters and bringing them back or making it look like the character got killed, but they were actually fine. As long as you keep doing that, you are killing any dramatic impact that those types of scenes are supposed to have for us moving forward. And that's the problem. Not killing off characters isn't the problem. That doesn't make audiences lose interest. There's decades of television that prove that. However, it's exactly what you're talking about. When you go back to that well too many times and you pretend kill somebody off or fake kill somebody off or kill them off only to bring them back 5 episodes later, that starts to erode the impact, dramatic and emotional impact that those types of scenes are supposed to have. So anyway, great question, great observation, Terry. Anyway, that'll do it for me, guys, for this Sunday installment of the John Campea podcast. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Hey, listen, while you're here, make sure you click the subscribe button, become a subscriber to my YouTube channel. Also, make sure you're following me on Twitter, simply @JohnCampea. I make a lot of announcements and put a lot of things there, so make sure you're following me there. And that'll do it for me, guys. Thanks a lot for joining me, and until next time, bye-bye.